And it is time once again for the spread here on February 2nd. An hour early today, but that will not get in the way of plenty of locks. Chris, 11-5 week last week. We are looking to build on something good here.
Very good, very good. We want to help you guys win. We want to help ourselves win, of course. But I feel like we kind of hit the nail on the head last week, and we talked about it on the show earlier. You were very good at your big bets. So, and I know you've got some big bets today. So,
yeah, I have a lot of bets today. I think
I will probably have
locked
less
in at the moment.
I will probably have less, and I think that's kind of been par for the course on Saturdays. You usually tend to have maybe like 10 to 12, and I'll usually have 7 or 8. But it's working, Joe. The Saturdays, surprisingly, it's a dangerous day because there's so many games.
Yeah,
but they've been pretty good to us.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's get going here. And the first, we're going to start at 12 o'clock. I got a 12 o'clock one that I could kick off with here. I actually have a double whammy at 12, similar to last week.
The old double whammy.
Last week, the double whammy. Last week, the double whammy split. It was the Arlington game. Actually, that was at 1 o'clock though. This one's at 12. First one is Miami, Ohio, plus 4.5. This line just is too high for me. Miami, Ohio is actually, if you followed the brunch last year, and we talked a little bit about betting, not as much last year as we have this year, but we were on Miami, Ohio a lot last year. This year came out in conference play, did not play anywhere close to as well as I thought they would. A little bit of a sophomore slump for a lot of their star freshmen from last year, but they're finally starting to get things together. I think they're even at best. Eastern Michigan's even at best with Miami, Ohio. Miami, Ohio might even be better. So in what I would imagine would be a low-scoring game, Miami, Ohio should be able to get to the free throw line a bunch and cover this 4.5. And because I say it will be a low-scoring game, the total is 135.5. Both teams are very, very slow-moving teams. I like the under here as well. Last year, both the games that these two teams played went significantly under this 135.5. The first score was 58-48. The second time was 58-57. Neither game making it above 115. So I like the under, and I like the under pretty big. I would recommend maybe throwing a little bit extra on that under.
Wow. Starting off with the old big bet. I also have a 12 o'clock game. My apologies. My computer is slow as shit right now, so I'm trying to pull up the numbers for me. But it's going to be the Memphis USF game. We hit the Memphis Tulsa game. We double dipped that on Wednesday night. And now we're going to go back to the well and fade Memphis because they're just not a very good team, and especially on the road. They've played pretty poorly on the road, and they rely a lot on forcing turnovers and getting offensive rebounds, as the Memphis team usually does. Now, USF, as I've mentioned on this pod, they are a well-improved team this year. They're at home, and this game is now a pick. I actually got it at 1.5, so you people are lucky. You're getting the later line, but USF should be able to control the boards. They're a very good rebounding team, both offensively and defensively. So I think Memphis is not really going to be able to have that edge there. And it may give them some trouble scoring. They shoot a lot of twos, not as many threes. Either way, USF just a very good defense overall. Excuse me, still banged up. The one thing here that Memphis has an edge on offensively is getting to the free throw line. However, and then defensively, their edge is forcing turnovers. However, South Florida is the best team at getting to the free throw line in the country and the fourth best team at forcing turnovers in the country. So I think that even where Memphis has an edge, South Florida is going to neutralize that maybe tenfold on the other side of the ball. So I think just getting a pick here against the Memphis team that hasn't shown as much on the road and doesn't seem to match up very well. I like the Bulls at a pick.
Memphis really plays an out-of-control style. I watched most of that Tulsa game the other day. It's
they're
very frenetic pace.
They're all over the place, and honestly, it's early, so it's hard to really say. But with Penny Hardaway as the coach, like they are all just unpredictable in just about every way. And I think I think it was earlier on in the week. I forget exactly what he said, but Penny Hardaway had some words, I think, for the other coaches in the American Conference, and then he promptly went and got crushed by Tulsa. So it wouldn't surprise me if Brian Gregory is like, you know what, we're gonna stick it to Penny Hardaway here. So
quite possible.
Take the Bulls at a pick.
let's go to 1 o'clock. I have one game at 1. We are looking at Georgia State here against Georgia Southern, the in-state rivalry. These two teams played twice last year, and they split their games. But the first time they played was the only one that I really care about, because that was the one that Georgia Southern played shorthanded, and they got pretty beat up at Georgia State. They lost by 17. Georgia Southern has been without one of their top players, Ike Smith, for most of the season and all of conference play. And Georgia Southern was supposed to be very good this year. They started the season exceptionally well. They entered conference play at 8. Actually, they were 8-3 before he got hurt. They're now 13-8. They're 5-3 in the conference, which still isn't bad. But Ike Smith means a lot to this team, and going up against a team that is of equal talent when he's even in there, taking him out is a big loss for Georgia Southern. So I like Georgia State here laying the 2 points against in the in-state rivalry battle here.
Okay, and I should have one of those as well at 1 o'clock, and we're gonna go back to the well with my Detroit Mercy Titans. Excuse me, the Detroit Titans have had a bit of a rough go recently, but they should be just about fully healthy. I believe Harrison Curry is going to play today. If not, I don't think it's a huge deal. But the big deal is that they got Antoine Davis back, and he's their best player. I mean, he got to the free throw line a ridiculous amount the other game against Cleveland State, and he's been really good for them all year. He's averaging over 25 points a game. And I think this team has just gotten overlooked recently because of the injuries. So I think now that they seem to be fully healthy, and they're playing a Youngstown State team who is, arguably the worst in the conference. And the thing I really like about Detroit in the horizon, I've said it time and time again on the show, and I know we've had some bad breaks with Detroit, but I think some of them were because of injuries. Detroit does a very good job at defending the 3-point line. They're above average at defending the 3. And that'll help because Youngstown is a team that has been shooting it pretty well. However, their shooting has tailed off a bit. They were shooting 40% from 3 on the season in conference, and now that's leveled off to 37%. I think they're coming back down to earth. Their offense just isn't that good, and their defense is atrocious. I think Detroit's going to have a field day. They should win the turnover battle, and I'm not afraid to lay the 5.5 here at home. So I'm taking Detroit minus 5.5.
All right, so we're looking at 2 o'clock, and the game we're looking at here is Southern Illinois and Bradley. This is a Bradley.
Oh, you missed one at 1 o'clock. You got another one, Joe.
Do I?
Yeah, Ron Hunter.
No, I just did that one.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We're going to 2. Southern Illinois, Bradley. This is a game. These two teams, if you look at the raw numbers here, you would not understand why I'm taking it over here. Bradley has not been able to score much. Southern Illinois they've both played at a pretty slow pace this season. However, here's the little tidbit that I've picked up on the last couple games, and it seems like this is what's going to happen going forward. Southern Illinois, in their last 3 games, you go back 3 games, they scored 19 points in the first half against Northern Iowa. They came out, pushed the tempo, second half, they won the game. 2 games ago, they only scored 19 points again against Loyola Chicago. They came out, they tried to push the pace again. They couldn't win that one. And then this past game, finally, they came out first half and pushed the pace, and they destroyed Indiana State. Well, at halftime of this game, they asked Barry Hinson, coach of Southern Illinois, have you made a concerted effort to push the pace more? And he said, well, yeah, we only scored 19 points each of the last 2 first halves. Why wouldn't we try to push the pace in the first half? So I think that this is the style that they're going to try to play going forward. They play better in a small lineup anyway. So they're going to go smaller, 5 guards, push the tempo. I think this game is being priced as if Southern Illinois is the Southern Illinois of the entire season, not the Southern Illinois of the last 3 games. So I actually like this over a lot here. 126, I think you can get it at, maybe even 127. Either way, I'm taking the over here.
Ooh, wow. A good old Bradley over for a team that doesn't seem to be able to score 40 points. But folks, that's the kind of analysis you can't really get anywhere else. That's where you come to the brunch, where we really get to the nitty gritty. And, obviously our focus on these conferences has kind of helped us and helped us really, hanker down and get the details you need to get an edge. So I think that's a great point there. Great bet. Do you have? I think you have another too.
Yes. We're going to Dayton Duquesne. Chris, one of the I gave this pick out on the brunch too. On I think it was Wednesday. Duquesne with one of the most incredible covers that we've seen. I mean, nothing's really gonna compare to the UTSA game of last Saturday, but Duquesne down 19 at the half against Rhode Island on Wednesday, somehow came back, won the game outright in regulation. A remarkable win by them, but for that reason, I think that they may come out a little flat here against Dayton. Dayton is a much better team, far outclasses Duquesne. I've actually been really impressed by Dayton this year, especially at home. And we had them against St. Joe's on Tuesday. They covered that spread pretty easily. Although, it was around the number the whole game, but it seemed like Dayton had control the entire game. I think that Dayton's going to throttle Duquesne in this game. I think that they're going to be able to score at will. And Dayton, the one spot you have to guard if you're Dayton when you're facing a Duquesne team is you got to defend the 3-point line. Anthony Grant seems like he's very up on the analytics. He's a Shaka Smart guy.
Yeah, he's been around a lot.
Yeah, I've seen him. He was at Alabama, and he's back at Dayton now. But I saw a couple interviews with him. He seems like he's got a handle on opposing team strengths, what to cut off. They did a really good job second half cutting off the 3-point shot against St. Joe's. I think they're going to come out and know what to do against Duquesne. I'm willing to give up the 9 points here with Dayton.
Wow. And again, I'll tease. I actually also have a 9-point favorite later in the show.
Sometimes you got to lay the wood.
Sometimes you do. I think you actually have even one more at 2 o'clock.
Wow, look at this. All right, let's see if I can find this one. Do I? I thought that was it at 2.
Did you get Monroe?
Oh, Monroe's at 2?
Yeah, Monroe is at 2.
Oh, I completely skipped over that. Okay. Louisiana Monroe against Appalachian State. Louisiana Monroe has been the better team all year long. And Appalachian State was supposed to be better. I will give them that. They really have underachieved this year. And now, because I think they won their last 2 games, albeit against 2 mediocre teams at best, subpar, I would say. I think people are just starting to forget their first 6 games in conference play where they went 0-6 and couldn't stop a nosebleed. And now everyone just thinks they're going to return back to form. Louisiana Monroe is the better team here. They're getting 2.5 points. I think this game is going to be a high-scoring game. So what I'm going to do here is because this does not compare confidence-wise to some of my other big bets, I do want to take something on the money line here. I'm going to just split it in half. Half on the +3 -120 for Monroe, and then half on the money line, which is +125.
Okay, I like that. I'm actually going to add a 2 o'clock game that I've just picked up, and that's going to be the Tulsa Golden Hurricanes yet again. They're getting 4 points at Wichita. Wichita has been an interesting team this year because they always seem to get more respect than they deserve, and they haven't really done much to, obviously deserve that. But I mean, if you look at their games, they play a little better at home, but they only have 2 wins in conference again with the American. One is against UCF in a game where they were 0-3. And desperately needed a win. Another one is against an SMU team, which I think is not very good. And now they get Tulsa. And I think Tulsa is an underrated team this year. And they actually, wait a minute. I think I may be uncovering some injury news.
Okay.
So let me table that one. Right. Let me table that one for now. Simon Falcone. He looks like he could be out. So. I'm going to have to see how important he is and what the deal is. But we'll table that one. Tulsa +4. It could be in play.
All right. Going to 3 o'clock. I don't have anything. My next one, I believe, is at 4.
I have a 4 o'clock too.
Actually, I don't. So you go ahead.
Okay. So my 4 o'clock game is going to be the Air Force Colorado State first half under. Now, you may ask, well, Chris, these teams both went over 150 the last time they played. What in God's green earth are you for? Well, I think that this is going to be a bit of a different game because I looked at the stats from that last game. Excuse me. And both teams shot over 50% in that game. It's just kind of hard to, keep that sustainable. I know Colorado State is a weird team where they are a pretty good offense and a bad defense, and maybe that doesn't help. It isn't great for unders, but they play at a slow pace. They've played a little bit of a faster pace recently, which is why I like the first half. And the other thing too is they take care of the ball very well. They don't force a lot of turnovers, and they don't foul very much. So I just think that this first half is going to be nice, slow pace. Everybody's going to be feeling it out. Obviously, Air Force, very slow team. I mean, their offense is pretty bad, and they play at a really slow pace, and they also don't foul much. So there's not going to be many free throws. And I just think that, at a total of 145, I think we may be getting a little advantage. So I'm not exactly sure what the first half under will be. But
usually it's subtract 10 and then half it. So
okay.
You're looking at probably 67 and a half-ish.
Yeah, I like that. So I'll take the Air Force Colorado State first half under at 67 and a half-ish, is Joe.
Okay. I got a couple at 4:30 here. So let's start with Western Michigan, the worst team in the MAC by far. The MAC, by the way, you got to give them a shout. What a conference this year. Way up. Big win by Bowling Green last night over Buffalo. Could be hurting Buffalo's at large chances, though. I still think they're in, but definitely teetering now. But back to the point here. Central Michigan has been a team that, I haven't liked all year long. You probably caught on to that. They've lost 4 out of their last 6. They have played a tough schedule, but this Central Michigan team to me is very similar to last year's team that was extremely underwhelming. They don't play very good defense at all. And Western Michigan, I will concede, is pretty terrible. However, this line has just gotten too out of control for me. I make the line in this game Central Michigan minus like 6.5 or 7. And we're at 8.5, even 9 at some books right now. It's just too out of control for a Western Michigan or Central Michigan team that does not play defense. So if you want, some detailed numbers here, Western Michigan should be able to grab some offensive boards and should be able to get to the free throw line a bit. It's not a pretty pick. I will admit that. You're not, when you're betting on Western Michigan, you're not going to be coming out with A+ talent and hoping they prevail. You're looking for, a letdown game here from Central Michigan, a team that has played a really tough schedule. Try maybe take it easy against a much weaker opponent. So I'm looking at Western Michigan to slide in the back door here and cover the 9 points.
The old slide in the back door. Joe, quick update. The player for Tulsa that is hurt, he doesn't really do too much. So I'm going to be fine with taking Tulsa +4. Okay. They should be fine. I think they're the better team, and I just think all year really, they've gotten more respect, Wichita State, than they deserve. Another interesting thing too, Joe. I know we've talked about coaching a lot, both on the show and off it, and obviously betting against Greg Marshall, there's a bit of a concern there with the coaching difference. And on the Tulsa side, there's a guy named Frank Haith who I think has maybe had some issues coaching, but honestly, they've been pretty good with him there. And I mean,
they haven't been, they made the tournament one year. They're not bad.
No, and we bet them, I believe, a good amount last year as well.
They've been pretty good to us.
Yes, they have. They have. So I think, an interesting thing to be looking at, just pointing it out because it's something, we've been looking at this year. You have definitely been looking at for a while, and I've been looking at it even more recently, is the coaching aspect. But there are, there's some good coaching, and this isn't a situation where it really comes true because, technically we are betting on the worst coach, but there are some instances where, there's some teams I know you've bet on this year because the coach just gives them a little bit of an extra edge there.
Mm-hmm. All right.
I think I have okay. So I'll throw this one out there because it's not, the added games have coming out, Joe. Ooh. I don't like this one just yet, but it is on my radar. If I don't bet this, and if you don't bet this, folks, I suggest watching this game because it's going to be a great game, and that is the Hofstra Northeastern game, and we're hoping to get Hofstra coach Joe McCalloch on the show soon. But these are the battle between the two best teams, arguably, in the conference. I know Charleston has a claim too, but I think that these two teams, they are a little bit more superior offensively, at least. So it should be a really good game. Now, the last game they played, Northeastern took it to Hofstra on the road and barely came out alive. The line right now is -2, and I'm going to wait till -1. If it doesn't get to -1, I'm just going to pass because there is a shot this team goes either way. But I do think that Hofstra at a point is in for a letdown, and Northeastern is the team to give it to them. At home, they are, their biggest competition. And, this Northeastern team, they've kind of had not a stranglehold on the Colonial, but they've been, one of the powerhouses of the conference for a while. And I think what's interesting too is that there was a stretch in November, December where they were missing Sean Osius and Vasa Busika, who Vasa was a great player for them last year. And I think he's probably their best player. And, I think that maybe just skewed their numbers a bit. They've been playing quite better in conference play. They're clearly better than most of their teams, aside from an inexplicable loss to Towson at home. But I think they get up for this game. And if you can get Northeastern at -1, I would take that.
All right, Northeastern -1. I'm not going to put it in the chat because it's not there yet. Right. But if you could keep an eye on it yourself as a viewer. Chris, I have not given you this pick yet, but we're about to get it because the first half lines are beginning to come out. Massachusetts and St. Joseph's. We are looking at the first half under 66.5 here between those two teams. Massachusetts is still being priced. Actually, both teams are still being priced as if they are the team that they were supposed to be at the beginning of conference play. And the bottom line is the St. Joe's and Massachusetts have just simply not played to their full potential this season, especially on the offensive end. Massachusetts was supposed to be a high-flying, high-powered offense. They're 1-7 in the conference, and they rarely get out of the 60s. So I don't understand now why we are still pricing this game at 141 for the game and 66.5 for the half. St. Joe's is still without a couple of their guys. Lamar Kimball's out. Pierre Francisco Oliva is out for the season. I don't think this game's getting up there. So 66.5 is a pretty high first half total. KenPom's still projecting the game to be 146 points. These two teams are 65, 66, 67 point teams apiece. So I think this total is priced way too high. I am taking the first half under here.
Okay. Well, Joe, I'll say quickly, and then we can move on. As I'm looking, there are some Colonial games come up, and you'll be happy to hear that I'm just not interested in them today. So the Colonial has been a tough conference to bet just because there's no defense played by most of the teams. So the games kind of get out of hand. And if I think we had the Delaware was the big one last week I gave out, and they were up 11 with 2 minutes to go and -4, and lost the cover at the buzzer. No,
yeah.
But
there's some bad beats in that.
What I will be looking at is the second halves of these Colonial games. I think it's about time that I start looking at that, and it just seems like if a team's down, the opposing defense, which isn't good as is, they let up a little bit. So I'm gonna keep my eye on that.
All right, I'm really upset that I'm not going to be able to give this game out, but I think the line has dropped too far here. In the Arlington, Texas State game, I mean, could I give it at 7.5? It's definitely borderline. I will say this: I bet it at 8.5. I can't really.
You also said to me that you like the money line too.
Yeah. You might want to do something with this game. If you do, make it a little bit smaller than maybe your normal bet. But I really did like Texas Arlington at. You know what? Let's do it. 7.5. Take Texas Arlington plus 7.5. I still make the line 6.5. So, I think that you're still getting some value here. I don't like losing a full point of value, but I just feel like these two teams are, Texas State is obviously having a magical season so far. And I think the breaks have gone their way, and KenPom's got them all the way up at 83. And apparently they're, the best team in the conference. Let's pump the brakes on Texas State a bit. I mean, last year they were 7-11 in the conference. They lost their last 10 conference games. And it's pretty much the same team as last year. So this is the type of team, they play low scoring, slow moving games that, when end games break their way and things, they get some of the luck, they tend to, they can get on a little bit of a run, a good run. Same thing can happen the other way though. In a game where they're laying 8 points, 7.5 points against the Texas Arlington team, who has been very good since conference play began, 5-3. We had them last week against Georgia State. They covered that game. I think this will be a low-scoring game, and I think Texas Arlington getting all those points will be able to hang around and come within the number. So if you want to sprinkle a little on the money line, I'm fine with it, but I will give plus 7.5 as an official play.
Okay. And I know you said that the Monroe game you want to do half and half, but I know there are some money lines that you like, betting a full unit on the spread, and then
we're actually about to get to one of those right now.
Okay.
It is a 6:00 game. We are betting a full unit on the LaSalle plus 6. This is quite possibly my favorite play of the day, other than maybe the Miami, Ohio under. LaSalle, to me, is the better team at this point. Richmond has not played defense the entire season, and LaSalle, they started the season miserably. They were 0-10 in their first 10 games, but they've had a little bit of well, not a little bit, a lot of a turnaround ever since they got one of their players back. I'm now looking up to see who exactly. It was Saul Peary, who came back literally for their first win. And since he came back, this team is now 5-4. And for an 0-10 team to turn around and go 5-4 in their next 9, that's a pretty impressive turnaround. Ashley Howard, the head coach of LaSalle, is over from – he was an assistant from Villanova. He has really instilled defense into the Explorers. And this LaSalle team is trending in the right direction. We bet on them on Wednesday against Massachusetts. They covered that game, won easily. This is a team that I'm looking to bet on down the stretch rest of the season against a Richmond team that does not play any defense. You have the best three-point shooting team in the conference against one of the worst at defending the three in the conference. LaSalle plus 6 is my favorite side bet of the day. Plus 6 for the full unit, and then another half a unit on the money line, which you should be able to get at plus 215.
All right. I just noticed I loaded up on that game already, so I'm looking forward to that one at the later date. Where are we at now? We're at the 6 o'clock still?
That's at 6.
Okay, let's see. Because I have at
6:30.
2 more. Yeah, keep going, because I think my last 2 are later.
All right. The next one we're looking at just pure value in our next bet here. We're looking at George Mason. George Mason continues to get underpriced here, and it's been a weird year for George Mason because they were supposed to be really good, and then they came out in conference play or actually non-conference play, and they really hurt themselves badly. I mean, this could have been an at-large team this year, but they really did not play well in the non-conference. However, then they got into conference play, and they've completely blitzed the conference. Their only loss is to Davidson, who I think is quite possibly the best team in the conference. They've won 5 in a row. They won at Dayton last week. They've just played really well, and VCU is good. I'm not going to take anything away from VCU. I think VCU could be possibly your only at-large team in this field of A10, very mediocre A10 teams this year. They're really the only ones with a decent enough resume to do so. Even their resume is not great. They struggle offensively, and actually George Mason has played better defense than Dayton in conference play so far. So I think these two teams are pretty close. For George Mason to be getting 8 points here, I know it's at VCU, but George Mason has not shown any signs of struggling on the road. They've won at Rhode Island. They've won at Massachusetts. They've won at Dayton. They seem to win anywhere. In-state rivalry here, I like the George Mason Patriots to continue their role, getting 8 points. I will take the 8.
Okay, so my last 3 games, actually, they're 2 at 8 and 1 at 10. So if you have any before 8, go for it.
All right, well, I believe you hold on, I'm just adding to the chat here. All right. I'm running a little bit low on plays, but it's pretty incredible how many I actually have.
It's okay, Joe. We're gonna be okay.
When these lines came out, I was a little bit I was like, wow, I really like this many games. I started to question myself. But hey, if they all win, we're looking just fine.
Right. If they all lose, we'll flee the country.
UTSA at Marshall is my next game. UTSA honestly, they probably shouldn't even be dogs in this game, and they're getting 4.5 points. They're just the better team, flat out right now. Marshall's still getting the respect that they, I guess, earned from last year when they made the tournament, beat Wichita State. But Marshall can't play any sort of defense right now. They've lost 3 out of their last 4. Their only win was against UTEP at home by 5. They really have had a lot of trouble covering games this year. And UTSA is one of the better defensive teams in the conference. They are just playing the better basketball right now. We had Steve Henson on the show last week for a reason, Chris. We think this UTSA team could win the conference. They're just the flat-out better team than Marshall right now. This is going to be a high-flying game. A lot of scoring, up-tempo. Both these teams are top 30 in tempo in the country. I expect a lot of three-pointers hoisted, and I expect in the end UTSA to cover the 4.5. So I like here a full unit on the spread, plus 4.5, half unit on the money line, plus 170. And Chris, for a triple whammy, we are going over 166.5 points in UTSA and Marshall. It is by far the highest total that I've ever bet over. But I expect one of these teams, and probably UTSA, to get to 100 points.
I think we bet a Marshall over in the tournament last year. I think it was the Marshall
West
Virginia game, and it had a hit, and that was like, I will say something on the Vegas trips. I feel like the last day we always hit like the last bet or two just to like not feel completely awful about ourselves for the trip. So that's always a good thing. But do you have any more for 8, or should I take the reins?
No, it's all you.
Okay, all right. So I got 2 at 8. The first one, I'm going to go with Oral Roberts, and Oral Roberts has been an interesting team here. They've had Emmanuel Zakwezi, who has missed 2 games, and he's finally came back against South Dakota State. He's their best player. He's one of the best players in the conference. And they've also been missing Sam Kearns, another one of their key players, who, they were 1-3 without him. They actually are a team that has played pretty well with their full team healthy. I mean, they started off, they didn't have the greatest non-conference, but they started off conference play. They won at Omaha, which is pretty impressive. Omaha is one of the better teams in the conference. And then they smacked North Dakota and Western Illinois at home. And then they got slaughtered by Fort Wayne, and and then South Dakota State on the road. 2 very high-powered offenses, but that's where things started to fall apart with the injuries. Now, we've got Fort Wayne here again. And Fort Wayne, we faded them the other day. It was very bad. They won by 40. So why do I want to fade them here? Well, Joe, because Fort Wayne is a team that has a very bad defense. And at a certain point, on the road, I just feel like this offense may not show up here. I think this Oral Roberts team is better than the numbers indicate. They've played well when healthy. They should be able to limit the easy buckets. They should be able to clear the defensive glass. And then on the other end of the ball, I feel like they're going to be able to hit a lot of threes. They shoot probably, an average amount of them, but they should be able to score pretty easily. Now, Fort Wayne, obviously, very good shooting team, but, I think they're a 3.5-point dog here. They're on the road getting a team that's finally healthy. I just feel like the offense goes a little quiet in this game. So I like Oral Roberts plus the 3.5 at home. The next one I'm going to go with is the Eastern Kentucky. They are at Edwardsville, and that's a short road favorite. I know those are a little tricky, short road favorites. Eastern Kentucky is -2. Edwardsville is really bad, and I think Edwardsville has kind of played a bit ahead of they've played a bit above their weight this conference play. I mean, maybe they're not as bad as they've been in the past, but they are a pretty terrible team. They've won 2 out of the last 3. But I think, one was a 3 overtime game against SEMO, which was kind of a joke. And then the other one was a game that they won at home against Morehead State, where Morehead State just completely collapsed. Now they have played tough, some teams. They lost 2 games in overtime. They beat SEMO the other time, and they only lost by Austin Peay to 8. So, but their defense is really bad. And Eastern Kentucky, their offense is getting better and better. They're a great 3-point shooting team, and they shoot a lot of threes. And they're a really fast-paced team. They really like to push the pace, and Edwardsville will run with them. I think the Eastern Kentucky, they lost the other night to Eastern Illinois, and that was a game where Eastern Illinois, another team I kind of like at OVC, they like to slow down the pace, and I think they weren't able to really. Eastern Kentucky wasn't able to really get out and run, but when they can, especially against a bad defense, I just think the points are bound to put up. And I think that Eastern Kentucky is only laying 2 here. They should be able to take this one on the road.
All right. Do you have any more at 8?
That one I didn't give to you yet, but
-2, that was,
The
right?
late lock. Yeah, Eastern Kentucky
All
minus.
right.
And
I have one more that I did not give to you also at 8.
Okay, let's hear it.
So that one we will give out now. This is my final pick of the day.
Okay, then I'll do my final pick. There we go.
We're looking at Middle Tennessee State, UAB. These two teams just played on Thursday, I think it was. No, Wednesday. They just played Wednesday. They're playing again. The old home and home. Every team has one home and home in Conference USA. This is the Middle Tennessee and UAB one. This game on Wednesday, UAB was at Middle Tennessee, 6.5-point road favorites. They got absolutely blitzed by Middle Tennessee from 3-point range. Middle Tennessee went 15 for 32 from 3, 10 for 25 from 3, 40%.
Joe, that sounds unsustainable to me.
Yeah, well, it is, and I think that since this is such a quick turnaround, and now UAB is coming home, they get to control the tempo, and they get to really focus on what they did wrong last game. I think that it's going to be a huge point of emphasis for UAB to shut down the 3-point shot and keep this game much more to their tempo because they want to play slow. Middle Tennessee wants to play fast. They come home. I think they slow this tempo down, and they will really focus on defending that 3-point shot. Middle Tennessee is not a good 3-point shooting team. They've only shot 31.7% for the season. However, they do shoot a lot of them. So when they get hot, that's when games go over. I just don't think that this is going to, carry over for another game. So I think UAB, Middle Tennessee, I'm taking first half under here, 63, as UAB plays a lot more focused basketball here against Middle Tennessee today.
Okay. And then sorry, you say first half under there?
Yes, under 63.
So the last one I have, I'm going to go to the Mountain West, our boys at Fresno State. It's been interesting to me. This line actually opened up around 13. It's dropped all the way to 8.5 now. And I'm not really sure why. I mean, again, both these teams, or Fresno at least, is very healthy. They're coming off a stretch of 3 of 4 on the road, and the only home one was San Diego State. So not an easy stretch, but they went 3-1, and a lot of buzz I think has gone to Utah State as the team that's that can really hang with Nevada, but. Fresno won at Utah State already this year. So I think Fresno is, they might be the second best team in the conference. If not, they're at least the third best team in the conference. And I just think this New Mexico team is going to be way in over its head here. Fresno's got a really good defense, and their greatest strength is defending the 3-point shot. They only allow 29.5% from 3 on the season. It's gotten even better in conference play. That number is good for 18th in the nation. And New Mexico, yes, they'll be able to get to the free throw line a little bit, but they shoot 44.7% of their shots from 3. And I think they're going to have a hard time if their shots are not falling. We've seen New Mexico this year, Joe. We've watched a couple of their games, and they can get out of it real quick. They got back in it against Craig when we had them, but that was also at home. And I think this one is just going to look to be a blowout. On the other end of the ball, Fresno actually shoots even more percent from 3, and they shoot a very high percent from 3. And New Mexico, just bad all-around defense, but especially defending the 3-point shot. So I just don't see any advantages here for New Mexico, aside from maybe getting to the free throw line a little bit. So I like Fresno. You can get it at 8.5 now. I understand 13 might have been too high, but the fact that it's dropped this low, it just seems a little odd to me, especially for a New Mexico team that, just hasn't really been that great on the road. And we've seen them, do amazing things at home, whether it was take Utah State to the wire or beat Nevada. But then on the road, it's been a different story. They got blown out by Colorado State, blown out by San Diego State, blown out by UNLV. I think this one's another blowout.
All right, well, there you have it. Our complete slate for February 2nd. Folks, best of luck today. I really expect this to be a big day, especially for me, because I put a lot of thought into these picks, and I have a lot of them.
Yeah.
So it better be a good day.
Well, and also I'm sure, just because you've gone through your picks, not mine, obviously, but I like my picks today too. I looked into them last night, and I was there was not a ton of value I saw. So I kind of waited for things to come up to me, and I kind of like it. I kind of like how we're looking today, and I think we've got some games early, get off to a hot start. Joe, I want to say too, I feel like, I'm not exactly sure what our record is. Maybe it's not as good as I thought, but in terms of totals, I feel like we've been pretty on the money with those. Like we've been, some of these totals we've really come to grasp them, and unfortunately, every now and then you get a team that blows a game because of course they're going to blow a game. That's just what happens when we bet on them. But I will say the totals I feel very confident about. I know you have most of the totals today. I only have one, but the fact that we've added those in, incorporated those, I feel like has really enhanced our profile.
You gotta sniff them out,
Gotta sniff them out. I don't really have much. I can't really.
Yeah, I know you can't do it. Yeah,
that
might be a problem.
I know. Well, I think if that's if I don't do well today, folks, I'm sick. Sorry, the sniffer just wasn't working.
We're not gonna. There's not gonna be any show next week. I can tell you that right now because I will be in Vegas taking a class. So
taking a class, folks. No, that's
RIP the spread.
All right. Oh, okay. The spread. I thought you meant the brunch.
The brunch, we will have to figure something out. We may be able to still record the brunch, but the spread
it'll be interesting because the football season is over, or will be over. So, but we should have some stuff for you coming up soon. And I think we've talked about some brunch madness. We got that hopefully coming soon, and a lot of good stuff coming. I love the NFL. It was a great year. But Joe, we're going to be fully immersed in college basketball, and I think everyone else is too. So once Monday hits, it's for real.
Enjoy that Super Bowl, and then it is officially college basketball season. Good luck, everyone. We'll see you next week.